Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Ben Leibovich coming at you once again with JustAskBenWhy.com. I'd like to talk to you very briefly, and when I say very briefly, I mean it very briefly because this subject is loaded. Value. Value in real estate, especially as it relates to long-term holds, your multifamily income-producing real estate. When most of us, most of the time, speak of value, we're generally talking cash flow. We buy this building in order to make money on it as represented in the cash flow, and therefore what we're talking about is numbers. What's the cap rate? What's the cash on cash return? What's the DSCR, the debt service coverage ratio on our finance package? All of those kinds of things. Let's put that aside because while it's true that there are items of value that can be represented in numbers. Those are the kind of the objective things, okay? There are also things that are subjective that are more difficult to quantify when it comes to value, but we still have to take them into consideration. First of all, in speaking about value, we have to recognize that throughout the life cycle of an investment, we have multitude of parties involved. You have your potential tenants, you have the owner, you have the potential buyer for when the owner goes to sell. Each one of those parties sees values differently. Therefore, in order for a long-term investment to work, it has to represent a balance between that which everybody wants. Why? Because in a free market society, people don't pay money for things they don't want. So if you're going to have a unit for rent, it better be something that somebody wants. Because otherwise, how can you achieve stable cash flow, which is supposed to be the essence behind buying this building in the first place, right? Make sense? So, for instance, I could talk for hours about this. In fact, let me tell you, I wrote an ebook called 13 Steps to Valuing Your First Multiplex. That's an ebook in which I walk you through the due diligence process and talk about all these numbers. It's currently available on Kindle. Check it out. But I'm vaguely considering writing a follow-up ebook because a lot more things need to be talked about with respect to value than what I covered. And this is because those subjective things. For instance, let me give you an example. To your tenant, it may be a great thing if you have a 2-unit apartment or a two-bedroom apartment with 2 bathrooms. Why should it be a great thing for your tenant? Well, with 2 bathrooms, husband can have his and wife can have his, and a lot of people like that. Or you can have 2 roommates and they can each have a bathroom. Okay? We can understand how, maybe this apartment can rent for more money and open the market up so a lot more people could potentially be interested. But let's look at it from the owner's standpoint. You now have 2 sets of plumbing to worry about because your pipes are going to get cleaned out, not just in 1 bathtub, but 2 bathtubs. Not just in 1 sink, but 2 sinks. Because, these things clog up and they need cleaned out. So, from the owner's standpoint, from the quote-unquote ease of management standpoint, which would you prefer? Well, then we start talking about numbers. How much more rent does a 2-bedroom unit with 2 bathrooms justify as opposed to a 2-bedroom, 1 bath? Do you see what I'm saying? Personally, I'll take a 2-bedroom, 1 bath any day of the week because in my neck of the woods, I'm not getting that much more rent for having another bathroom. Then, of course, when you get ready to sell the thing, somebody has to want it. Otherwise, you can't sell it well, right? Well, what is it that another investor is going to want? And from this standpoint, let's talk about maybe you have a 4-plex or a 5-plex. Which one would be better to own from the standpoint of the exit strategy? Well, a 4-plex can be financed with a Fannie Freddie residential note, which is accessible to a lot more people, and you can have an owner live in 1 unit and rent out 3 others, and therefore, financing package-wise, you have a lot of birds out there who can take this thing down. But you just add 1 more unit, 5 units, it's got to be somebody with a commercial note, which requires more down payment, it requires a shorter amortization, and it requires a higher interest rate, right? So from that standpoint, from the exit strategy standpoint, are you better off being an owner of a fourplex or a fiveplex? So you see, there are a lot of issues with value, how we define value, and we have to look at every side and every component of throughout the life of a particular investment in order to qualify these things as best as we can. Okay, now defining each component is very prolonged conversation, which is why I'm considering writing a follow-up ebook. I certainly can't even begin to cover any of that in a short video. Perhaps you can leave me a note here with this video if an ebook like that is something that you would like to see happen. But hopefully this points you and gives you kind of a bird's eye view on how we look at value. It's not all about the numbers. Numbers are important. Numbers are why we buy property, but we also don't want to be slaves to our property. So we want to have a good exit, and we also want to have a good time managing this property while we have it. We wanted to attract the right kind of crowd so that they make it easy for us to manage this property. You see what I'm saying? There are a lot of pieces, and classifying all of them into little compartments, that's a long conversation. Please let me know if you'd like me to consider more seriously writing an ebook such as that. My name is Ben Leibovich. Hopefully this helped you a little bit with your thinking relative to long-term income producing, specifically multifamily real estate. Thank you for listening, and I'll speak to you next time.